What is good, Mexit planners? Thank you for joining me for another edition of the Yucatan News Weekly Update. In today's Yucatan News Weekly Update, we're going to take a look at several stories that center around the theme of public health and safety with the goal of answering the age-old question, is Mexico safe? We're going to start by taking a look at crime statistics in Mexico at a national level and then drill down into how that translates into safety for the state of Yucatan and the city of Merida. Let's get it. Federal news, this first story is one about violent crimes at a national level. In this video, I wanted to give you the sense of security at a national level versus that of the state of Yucatan and the city of Merida, which is often referred to as the safest state and city in Mexico. In 2022, in the ranking of the 50 most violent cities in the world, in a report that was created by the Citizens Council for Public Safety and Criminal Justice, Mexico had 9 out of the 10 most violent large cities. Now, large cities are defined as those with more than 300,000 people. Mexico has 12 cities with a population of over 1 million people, with Mexico City having the largest population in all of North America. Mexico also has 69 cities with a population of 300,000 people. Merida is ranked 14th in terms of total population in Mexico, with just under 1 million people as of the 2020 census. In comparison, in the United States, there are 10 cities with a population of over 1 million people and 68 cities with a population of more than 300,000. So Mexico has more larger cities than in the United States. Colima was ranked number 1 of the 50 most violent cities with a homicide rate of 181.9 per 100,000 inhabitants. Mexico had 17 large cities listed in the report, with 9 of the cities listed in the top 10. In comparison, the United States had 7 cities listed in the report, with New Orleans being the only city listed in the top 10. Some of the usual cities in the United States were places that we all know to be dangerous, like Baltimore, Chicago, Milwaukee, and etc. In a previous Yucatan News Weekly update, I reported that the state of Yucatan had a homicide rate of 1.6 per 100,000 residents, which is well below the national average and much safer than a city like Colima that is smaller than Merida. The point that I want to make about the national statistics in this report is that Mexico does indeed have a problem with security as it relates to areas of the drug war. But unfortunately, this is the only part of the story that is ever reported in the US media. For example, it's never reported that Merida Yucatan is safer than every large city in the United States. Switching gears to a story about migration to the Yucatan, the population of Merida grew 41% from the years 2000 to 2020, so over 2 decades up to the last census. And 1/3 of the increase, or 96,000 people, came from other states in the country, causing unusual and dramatic demographic change. Merida is seen as a security oasis, according to this report. The population growth of the state of Yucatan of over 290,000 people in a 20-year time frame is unusual compared to the rest of the growth of the country in the same time period. The leading cause of the migration to Merida is the consistent and stronger sense of security in Merida versus other areas of the country. The vast majority of the new settlers are security migrants or people fleeing the violence in their home states. These security migrants are mainly of an above level education, income, and age range compared to the inhabitants that are currently in the cities that they're moving to. For example, the average age of the security migrant is 45 years old with college education and a higher income. The security migrants are settling in areas north and east of the city in towns like Cancal and Canacín. These new residents are contributing to the new private subdivisions that are being built in areas like Cancal. Of the 31,500 plus residents that live in Cancal and Privadas, almost 47% of them are foreigners from other states. Many of the folks who moved to Canacín are the blue collar workers and are much younger than the folks that settle in Cancal at an average age of around 32. Cancal has seen one of the biggest changes in its population in the last 20 years. In 2000, only 1.92% of the population was born outside of the Yucatan. In 2020, that number jumped to more than 23.69% of the population that was born outside of the state. The growth of the state of Yucatan in the same period was 36%, but in Cancal, it grew 42%, which was more than 10 times the growth rate from 1980 to 2020. In comparison to the number of people that moved away from the state of Yucatan, only 33,474 Yucatecans left during the same period of time. The rate of folks that have moved to Yucatan for security reasons is almost 4 times higher than those that have moved to other parts of the country. All right, switching gears to a state story. In the previous Yucatan News Weekly update in January, there was a story about the Yucatan having almost as many pets as people. There are 2.07 million pets in the state of Yucatan and just over 2.3 million people in the entire state. The state had over 900,000 dogs. So the recent news of increased dog attacks is very alarming. In 2022, the Ministry of Health reported that there were over 3,433 people that were attacked by dogs. In 2021, there were 2,381 people injured. In the 11 years of recording dog attacks, 2022 had the second highest number of attacks ever recorded. This data implies that on average, someone is attacked in Yucatan every 2.5 hours by a dog. And at that rate, that is just over 9 attacks per day. In the most recent attack, a man was severely injured by 2 pit bulls in the city of Caquel. The pit bulls attacked when a man went to visit a friend and the lady that lived there opened the door. The man tried to fend the pit bulls off with his bicycle, but unfortunately, he was attacked on both sides by the pit bulls and later suffered severe injuries by having to have his arm amputated. Police later returned to the property and confiscated the dogs. The dogs were left at the house abandoned because the owners of the dog had fled. The police had to wait for the firefighters to enter the property because they needed to break the lock so they could get access to the dogs. Neighbors had reported in the past that these dogs were vicious and had injured other animals. And because of the injuries sustained to the man, the prosecutors are considering charges to the owners. Reported before, the dog culture here in Yucatan is very different. On one hand, you have over 900,000 dogs that are pets. And those pets are very well taken care of. There are lots of pet grooming and boarding places and full spas even here in Merida. On the other hand, you have the culture of stray and abandoned dogs. It's not uncommon to run into a stray dog while walking on the streets. However, I've never run into an aggressive stray dog. Most of the dogs that I see barking and that are aggressive are owned by people as security dogs or guard dogs. These are the animals that you hear barking at all times, no matter what part of the city you live in. In another dog-related story, the Municipal Animal Control Center, or CIMCA, has changed its name to CIMA, which stands for the Municipal Animal Care Center. The center is now focusing on not just population control for stray dogs, but also animal welfare and responsible ownership. At CIMA, 4 to 12 animals are adopted every single month, and CIMA currently has a capacity for 50 spaces in their quarantine area and 12 spaces in their adoptable area. CIMA has 2 shifts of personnel, around 8 people, 2 administrators, 2 veterinarians, and 4 employees for the capture and collection of animals. The employees of CIMA are city employees of Merida, and this is a service that's offered by the city. Because of the limited staff, animals are only collected if someone calls CIMA, and they can be reached at 924-4000 or 999-611-0250. CIMA offers free pet services at 2 service centers. There's one on Calle 18 between 93 and 99 in Colonial Chichen Itza, and there's another on Calle 28 between Calle 7 and 9 of Colonial Juan Pablo II. Switching gears to another public health story, the University of Autónoma de Yucatan, or UADY, has inaugurated a level 3 biometric laboratory for the study of infectious diseases. According to the CDC, the highest level laboratory is a level 4 laboratory, and that is where only the deadliest microbes are handled. So having a level 3 lab in the Yucatan is a huge deal and will not only help research in Mexico, but also in neighboring countries as well. In an update to the state of COVID-19 in Yucatan, the officials say that despite the large number of events like Carnival, Merida Fest, and others that have recently taken place, there has not been an increase in the number of folks getting sick. They attribute the low numbers of new infections with the natural immunity that was developed in folks over the last 2 years and the vaccination program that happened in the later stages of the crisis. While the virus still exists, fewer people are actually getting ill and needing hospitalization. The officials urge you to continue to wash your hands and wear your mask in healthcare environments and also in crowded public transportation. but admit that outdoor events pose little risk. On another note, the monkeypox virus still exists in Yucatan. However, there are no deaths and no one in the hospital from it. Of the 168 cases that were recorded, all but one has fully recovered, and that person is being monitored at home. In an oddly related flu virus story, the price of eggs continue to increase here in the Yucatan. The price has gone from 43 pesos in my previous report to over 58 pesos. That is a 35% increase in just a few weeks. Now, the increase is blamed on the avian flu virus that has affected many of the plants in Mexico and the United States. The slaughtering of over 60 million chickens due to the avian flu in the United States led to egg smuggling because the price of eggs in Mexico is still half of that of the United States. Switching gears to safety on the roadways, Mexico had the worst year of deaths due to transportation accidents in 2022. There were about 40 deaths per day due to crashes on roadways in Mexico. People are surprised to find that the standard for vehicle safety measures here in Mexico are far behind that of the United States. In fact, Mexico and Indonesia are the only two G20 nations that adhere to the basic car safety requirements of the UN. Many features like ABS brakes, electronic stability control, and pedestrian protection are not considered standard in many cars here like they are in the United States. The experts estimate that 6,700 lives per year could be saved just by implementing those features standard in all new cars. I'm sure one of the big contributing factors of deaths per day would be accidents involving motorcycles. The people in Yucatan, for example, in my opinion, are some of the worst drivers, only maybe second to those drivers I've seen in Puerto Rico. An accident here can cost you hours of your time because most accidents require that both parties settle the claim or the insurance companies establish fault at the scene of the accident. Fault of the accident cannot be established by the insurance company or the police. An accident could result in jail time by both parties. This usually only happens when one of the two parties doesn't have insurance and no one accepts responsibility. Just on a personal note, my family and I have been in Merida for just over 3.5 years, and in that time, we've been rear-ended twice while stopped at traffic lights. Luckily for us, we have a larger SUV and only light damage was done to our bumper, but the two cars that hit us had significant front-end damage. In both cases, rather than waste our rest of our day trying to get compensation for getting our bumpers fixed, we let both of the people go. Funny enough, we got the bumper fixed both times in the Walmart parking lot by the guys who wash cars there for like 500 pesos. What's going on about security in the recent news? In a recent people poll taken by the major news outlets, the question was asked, do people still feel safe? Well, 31.3% of the folks said no, and 68.7% of people said yes. It can be hard to quantify how safe it feels here in Merida, but I can tell you I feel safer here than I do in the United States. So tell me what story today was the most intriguing to you. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, MexitPlans Monty. Amoo!